transitioned. Hello, everyone.
What's going on, folks? We're back for another round. This is John, this isn't quite as crazy as a few weeks ago, but I was really excited. Um like this is the big hitters. This is the what's the right word here? This is the All-Stars weekend over here on the creator interviews. We got Skeeter and Levi. Now we've got Tony and his crew. I don't think I've talked to Nuclear before, but it's like this is going to be a great evening.
Yeah,
So
man, it's like coming home again. Having these the returning guests, I love it.
All right. Well, welcome anyone who happens to be in the live chat. We're going to go ahead and start a recording on another creator interview. If you want to go ahead and get your uh, browser web pages to the right site to follow along with us, this is a Gamefound project that we're going to be talking about today. It's called 13 Hunters, all one word, 13 Hunters. Um, and these are two of the three creators listed on the team page there that we're going to be chatting with. All right, here we go. In three, two, one. Hello and welcome to Geeks Can't, the home of RPG jargon and general tomfoolery. I'm your host Zach, and I'm joined, as I am always joined, by the dwarven DM John Christian.
Hello, everyone, and good evening.
And then I've also got uh, the you know what? I'm going to give you Troy's title since he's not here. I'm going to say the dapper man himself, Tony Vasinda, along for the ride.
That's a good stand-in. Welcome,
Yep.
Tony.
Hey guys, good to be back.
And then I've also got NuclearObelisk coming in.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for
Uh,
having me.
yeah, absolutely. Um, First off, let me say, really excited to have Tony back and appreciate what Tony does for the community, but I'm also really excited to get to talk about another Gamefound project. So, first and foremost, right out the gate, kudos to you guys for climbing on that platform again, and I'm really pleased to see people pushing it forward.
Yeah, it was it was a little sneaky. Since I already have access to GameFound, it's a little bit easier to get to run second projects on it. A lot of people are still waiting to run their first. And so I wasn't planning on doing much for a Zemo project other than helping just kind of promote and market. But I'm a huge fan of Nobsks. So like Nuclear does just tremendous work. Their project last year, Power Words, was my favorite project of
Ooh.
Zine Quest 3 as far as just from a sheer design perspective. And so I was like, hey, why don't I help market and promote, and we can run over on GameFound. I was going to go back to Kickstarter for one more round of a project and then just move over to GameFound completely. But since all the announcements, everything that's gone on, just kind of the constant state of a lot of what's happening at Kickstarter for the foreseeable future, everything we do will be GameFound, Itch, Indiegogo, or another platform. For funding, we're really heavy in on Itch and GameFound, though. So I was really excited to be able to partner with Sam and Nuclear to do this project. I just think that Nuclear's design is so cool. So even though Sam and I are listed on the as like creators, like really Nuclear Obelisk is doing the work on this one. It's their design, their art, their everything. And so we just get to go along for the ride on this beautiful project.
Yeah, I was
Awesome.
commenting about that whenever we're talking the design and the artwork. I can't wait to let everyone see and stream, and for people to go out there onto GameFound and actually take a look at the artwork. It's absolutely, I love it. That's the first thing that grabbed me as soon as I saw it. And I was just talking about how much I love. I hopefully I'm not the typical, or maybe I am. I mean, I hope I am the typical consumer that really appreciates not only good lines but also really good coloring, and I love the palette. It's a really really strong palette, and it's very nuanced. It's like sophisticated is probably the word to use for it. I really love the palette and the coloring that was done with this. I love the look. Absolutely love it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Nob, before we get into the new project 1300, since this is the first time we have have had you on the show, and Tony's already brought up one of your previous projects. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the things that you worked on before, and maybe, yeah, if you worked on several things, what are the types of things that you like to work on?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, hi, I'm NuclearObelisk. I've been on the TTRPG scene since about halfway through college, which was several years ago now. But yeah, and Sam and I were in the same undergrad program, so
Oh,
that's where we met. But we worked on some projects together in school, which included a D&D slash OSR-ish uh, book for running a West Marches campaign, which
yeah.
for the uninitiated is a style of campaign where if you have access to a large player pool, it can support however many players you want. Essentially, they go out in parties of 6 or whatever to do missions um, in a large, persistent sort of campaign world. So we wrote kind of a wilderness guide and half campaign writing toolkit for that. That's called Azerians and of the West Marches. Um,
Mhm.
and then I've also wrote a game called Kishu, which was was my first like a big like I want to write a game project. Which is it's a Blades in the Dark ish hack, which is based on the opening bike chase scene from Akira,
Mhm.
the anime, the film. Um, I saw a YouTube video of it set to I think harder, better, faster, stronger, just like a 4K upscale of just that scene. I was like, that's an RPG. Let's do it. Um, but yeah, so it's more than that. It ended up being way too long and like overwritten. But I like it. I still think it's charming. But yeah, it's about being a biker gang in the climate apocalypse, driving down a just vast highway expanse. And then after that was Power Words Engine,
Mhm.
which Tony loves very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
all
so
of his
good.
positive feedback on it.
Not
Um,
just me. Like there are so many people who love that system, but that was like my first fall in love with Knobs was like, hey, I don't want to just I don't want to just slide this into another system. I want this to be a game that I can just play. I paid
Mm.
enough to get the power word beard inserted into that
yeah,
game.
absolutely.
That's awesome.
And we love you for it. Uh, yeah. So that toolkit, I guess, is uh, a tool for making custom magic spells for your fantasy game out of just words. So
That's cool.
basically, the way it works, each word it has a school of magic associated with it. Essentially, all the schools are laid out on a wheel, and depending on what words you pick for your spell, they interact differently and give way to more powerful effects depending on which words you pick. So um, it's kind of a a weirdly like esoteric and arcane in itself sort of system in the more general use of the term arcane, but it's also arcane in the term in magic ways. Um, yeah, so that's that, and then most recently, other than 1300s, I wrote a game called Arc Ball, which is like a future sports powered by the apocalypse hack. Just super light, 24 pages. Um, it's like mostly art. Uh, um, but yeah, just a really tight, game about being on a giant arena spaceship playing a strange, very violent sport to determine the fate of 8 colony ships just careening through space to an undetermined destination.
That's cool. I like that.
Um, yeah, but that's it. And now 13 Hunters, which is we're going to talk about it more, I imagine.
Well, I've heard Blades in the Dark. I've heard Powered by the Apocalypse. A completely new system over here, with with Power Words Engine. Then we've got 13 Hunters. Like you've really painted yourself into a corner, haven't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. See, the thing that I do is I have them all on my shelf here. I'll spare you the dead air of me pulling them all out right now. But uh, Azerians and like this. Kishu is
Mhm.
about this long. And the power word's about this long, and an art ball's about this long. So really, it's just a journey of me unlearning to like overwrite everything. Um, and it just the systems that I choose happen to coincide with that impetus.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this: I'm always curious. Whenever you pick up a new system, what does that look like? I mean, you have an idea of what you want to do in regards to like the overall themes and things like that. But how do you couple that with the system? Do you look for the system after the fact, or do you see a system and you're like, what would be really cool is if I did this in it? It's the chicken or the egg? How does that work?
Yeah. So I think the system comes later typically,
Hmm.
unless there is something very specific about the idea that is requires some um, figuring out of what game design works best with this. Really, for me, the actual die rolling has been secondary to, what the dice rolling represents,
Right.
right? Yeah.
So once you is there a we've got a handful of systems already. Is there a system that you've already got your eyes on for next time around, or are there? Let me ask. Actually, they'll do a two-parter. First off, is there one that you would like to tackle next, and is that the same one as the one that you love playing in right now, or is there another one?
Oh, so our our current game, the game that I'm currently playing, is in Mothership.
Oh yeah.
We're testing a module that Sam, who couldn't join us tonight, unfortunately, is writing called Time After Time.
So good.
And I'll just
Mm.
plug it really quick because this is the best module I've ever played in any system ever.
Oh
Really?
It's
wow.
so good. It's so good. Just we had like a 3-hour session last week. The first hour was playing the game, and then we spent 2 hours debating causality in a way that was completely relevant to what we were doing.
That's awesome.
It was just amazing. That probably speaks more to like what I enjoy as a player rather than the
No,
average
like I
experience. But
love that as
very
a
good.
game master and as a DM. Like those weird tangential games that like they take on. They're like this organic overflow out of like
Yeah,
game to game theory to like whatever else. Those are just as fascinating as and as fun to me sometimes as I love seeing those evolve more than anything else, and then kind of like figuring out how we veer back on course if we do. Sometimes it's the
right.
rest of the session is completely shot by whatever it was that we talked about. We're all like when you play that game of Kids on Bikes or Tales from the Loop or something like that, and you talk about like 80s pop culture the entire time,
Right.
and you're just as happy about that as you were about playing the actual game, then
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mothership is one that I love that system. I think it's great.
Mm.
Uh, I would love to write something for Mothership. I will always love Powered by the Apocalypse systems, Apocalypse World,
Mm-hmm.
um, just for how easy it is to hack. I really think that that's a huge strength of the system. Just, you know, give me 2d6 and 3 categories of success, middling success, and a failure, and like we're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mhm.
fit anything to that.
I
Mhm.
think one of the other great things about Sam and Nobsk is they both like the attention to visual design. Like we talked about the art,
Mm-hmm.
but the aesthetic presentation and the look of both of what they do like really reinforces play. And I think time after time, like some of the stuff that Sam is doing in that one with color
Oh
gradients based
God,
on what time place you're currently in and some other pieces like that
it's
are
so
That's
good.
cool.
super sharp, super
That's cool.
sharp. But like I think both of them are just tremendous at figuring out, okay, how do I take the information that's being presented visually through layout and through the words, and how do I make those one seamless whole complement each other and not necessarily need to be hyper repetitive,
Mm-hmm.
but tell you a little bit more through each thing, right? And I think both of them just kill it with that. Like I said, Power Words did it very well. Sam stuff does it just tremendously. But then for Knobs, like that's like having looked at now 3 mostly done spreads of the hunters. It's like all the little bits and pieces that you can pull out are just tremendous from just looking at a quick like 2 A5 pages basically.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's dive into the hunters then, real quick. That's a good lead in. So, 13 Hunters is a project that is on GameFound, as we brought up earlier. In it, I'm just kind of pulling up from the very beginning, the first introductory paragraph. By the way, super super useful, folks who are listening in. It's really handy to have somewhere towards the top, just a tight paragraph telling us what your game is about. So you got a 13 Hunters is a zine compendium of 13 renowned bounty hunters from across the Orb Space. And inside you'll find a system and setting agnostic dossiers filled with all sorts of attributes, art, vignettes, and tables you need to drop these terrifying creatures into your sci-fi or fantasy role-playing game. That reinforced with the art promises like a huge variety, like wild, poppy, pulpy ride of like creatures that you never saw coming. I'm really excited. What can you tell us about this newest project, 13 Hunters?
Yeah, I think pulpy is a fantastic word for the intent behind it. I think that I
Mm.
feel like that was like on the tip of my tongue the entire time I was like writing that page. Um, yeah, so I mean, you said it right. The 13 Hunters is just basically a monster manual, but very, very focused on specifically individual creatures who can show up in your game with such main character energy that your players just like cower in fear immediately. Um,
Right on.
yeah, they're kind of myriad in appearance and what they do and what they're capable of doing, what their level of I guess technology quote unquote is. As far as setting agnostic can get you at that. Um, but yeah, just 13 just weird characters that you can drop in and are frightening.
It was we got to play last Saturday, so not yesterday, but a week ago. We got Sam and Novsk and a couple of other folks on stream. I think Meat Castle's in the chat right now to be able to play live, and it was fun. Like even like I ran it, and so like Dom has kind of a like a little bit of an insight into what's coming up, and even Sam, because Sam's editing it, had like some insight into what they were, but was still like super surprised based on all the information I was using to kind of lay out who was who. Like they took one of the bounty hunters onto their ship right at the very beginning of the adventure, and lots of them didn't know it was one of the bounty hunters until
Awesome.
the very end of the session. But one of the other ones was a giant thing that popped out of a a giant silo of human waste. And stabbed one of them through the chest, essentially killing them pretty much right away. So that we were using an OSR system, so high lethality. That player did make it to the end of the session, but only because somebody was there with a heal ability right away. But yeah, it like it is crazy how like Sam I think and Novs were both like convinced when it popped out that they were dead.
Yeah, you
It
can
was
see
like
it on both of our faces if you like watch it back. Just like, oh no, not that one, Jody.
Well,
um but yeah, they're tremendous. They've got a ton of variety in who they are, what they do, and like they're even alternate aliases, which was one of the best parts because like I could lay out here's a name I'm gonna throw out, and even the way I lend some of them gave a little bit of different flavor and just enough to be like, all right, I'm not immediately sure if this is one or if this is just a weirdo Tony's putting in front of us in the sci-fi setting. Sometimes it was evident, but other times it was much harder to determine. But all that was just like straight from the writing with just a very little bit of like off the top of my head lensing to drop them in.
so Tony, you're helping bring this project to life via Gamefound and kind of helping with the presentation of it. But then you're tasked with telling a story from this book and choosing a system to run it in. As you were looking at this and deciding how are you going to present this on the stream and whatnot, um, you said you used like an OSR variant. But what sort of systems came to mind as you were cycling
Well,
through what you could?
Tony always be selling. So I use Through the Void because that's the current system I'm working on. It's
Yep.
our house OSR system for space adventures, right?
Yeah.
And so it's getting a lot of development right now. And so So it was either going to be that or Down We Go, because that's just kind
Yeah.
of easy for me. If I'm going to run something on stream, I need it to be something that's rules light, and ideally one of our systems, because then I can just mentally drop it in. So with me running it, it was going to be like Beards and Beyond. It was going to be Down We Go. It was going to be that, or it was going to be another system that I was super familiar with. And since I didn't think anybody wanted to roll up GURPS characters really quickly, I went ahead and just used that, which was fun. Like, it was the first time we got to play around in the station. Lots of the playtest we've done has been like out in space, and so it was really cool to have them coming back from an adventure, kind of entering into the downtime phase of game, and have it not be the downtime phase. But like, there's a lot of information that's presented in the A5 piece of paper. That's the dossier. That's where most of the information is housed about each one. So for me, it was sitting down and like minimizing that data even further. It's a D20 system. ACs and a couple other things are included. We use kind of a unified piece, but it took me maybe 3 minutes to convert everything, and most of that was just writing stuff down. Like, the mental process of what do I want to do here
Nice.
didn't take any time whatsoever. It was really more like, okay, I've got to type this up so that when I go to look at it really quickly, I know what my numbers are off the top of my head. But essentially, like, damage changed a little bit, their HP changed a little bit, and then I unified their skill and their AC into one difficulty number, because that's how the system works. But all that information was right there, easy to do. The narrative pieces were the most fun to pull out of,
Yeah.
though. Like I said, the aliases, the little bits of information. Universally, like, I let people vote on which ones we were going to use on stream, except for one of them. The locksmith, on it's like I gave 4 options for each poll, and like the locksmith was everybody's top pick for the one they wanted to see,
Nice.
and was the most fun one to throw into the mix. Like, they were the most like kind of madcap, supernatural. They're a hemigod, whose powers have been bound and tremendously reduced. But they were kind of just a crazy individual, along for the ride. But it was
looking at the description
still
for
really easy.
for it on Gamefound, I love, like, this is my favorite one already. Ethereal Sovereign of bindings, doors, keys, and double joints.
Yeah,
I friggin' love that. Double joints. That's like, I didn't see that one
Yeah.
coming, but I love that.
So the premise with the locksmith is one of my favorites too, so I'm gonna talk about it because it's great.
Yep.
So he's been essentially bound by some sort of astral overcourt, right, to 3 tenets which are given in its description. And all of his powers are loopholes to those restrictions. So he always has to be imprisoned unless he's freed by local entities to whatever reality he happens to be in. So he can teleport anywhere that's locked. He can just teleport at will
Oh
to.
wow.
So
where does
if there's a prison cell, it
So
would
where did
just
that come
constantly-
from? Like, were you Doc Brown, slipped on, the toilet in the bathroom, knocked your head, and you got the flux capacitor moment, or like, where does that even, like, I'm always fascinated to know where the inspiration for some of these really madcap creations come from for creators. Where did that, where's did it grow out of the side of your head like a shroom or what?
Yeah, so basically that actually. So I got a drawing tablet like relatively recently. I mean, I guess it's been a couple of years now. It's not that recently, but um, I for a while was just drawing weird creatures with no particular goal or idea about what they were or if they would even be part of something larger. Because I'm really inspired by Mobius is one of my favorite artists, and also Abaddon, who writes Kill 6 Billion Demons webcomic, which I absolutely love. So just kind of like doing like master studies of those pieces and like trying to piece together my own style from that stuff. Ended up with like a big folder full of just like creeps and weirdos, like strange creatures.
It's
And
something
then when it came time for Zemo, it's just
I'm
here we
so
go.
jealous of that. I'm so jealous of, like, my neophyte. That's a little bit better than Stickman art skills, and these folks that can do like concept art, whip it up, and like they have this portfolio of just the things that their brain vomited over the course of years, and it's crazy to me to see some of the stuff that people are able to produce that I don't know that I could even describe it in word form, which is my strength, is the written word, right? It's like there's so much, there's stuff in there that is so to borrow the pun, it out of this world by comparison to what you're. I love that. It's absolutely fascinating to me seeing an artist write, or like outside of just like concept art and kind of like visual study and things like that, create a story or a narrative or a character from the nebulous of that visual style. I could sit here and talk all day long about that and just pick your brain about where that comes from. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean that's all 1300s is basically. I just took these creatures, put them on one part of a page, and then filled the other part with strange esoteric information about them.
Did we send you guys the preview layout of the Whirly Gig?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I would be.
I'll drop it in the live stream chat
Yeah,
over on the
definitely.
Discord right now, so you guys can look.
Yeah.
Like I just realized I was like I don't think we sent Zach the press kit at all. I was just like I was like let's do something, and that was it. But I just dropped it in so you guys get a little bit better of a sense of some of the stuff we're talking about when we're talking about the visuals and just one of the spreads. It's so tremendous. But yeah, that art style, and it was really funny. Like it was a week beforehand when I was like, Knops, did you do all this art yourself? Like because I was looking at Arcball and noticed it was super familiar, and then I was like, wait, is this just all you? And so yeah, I'm also somebody who gets super jealous for that kind of stuff. And so
oh man, it's wonderful. I mean, it is the most positive jealousy possible. Like it's like I'm glad that someone in the universe has it. I lament that I don't, but I'm glad that someone else can do both, right? Because oh man, I would if I could draw worth a damn, I could see myself doing something similar where it's just like that's all I do. I'm just like I always have something to draw with and something to draw on, and that's just what I'm doing in between stuff is doodling things that become something it kind of goes from like cosmic dust into something really great that I love and that I want other people to know more about.
For sure.
Yeah.
One of the things you can kind of see it if you're on the Gamefound page, and I don't know the word for this, but this chart that you have, Knobs, on this preview that kind of gives an indication of what type of creature the hunter aligns itself most closely towards. What you probably have a proper name for that chart.
I don't actually.
You know,
I've been calling it a dial.
Yeah, you know the dials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like it's got these 6 points on it, and then there's a shape that kind of indicates what points this creature most aligns to. And to me, that's always like as soon as I saw that, even on the Gamefound before you sent this over, I'm like, that's the sort of thing that's really useful for me when I'm sitting here and maybe I've read through all this and I know that I'm going to bring this creature in or whatnot, but in a system neutral game especially, it's kind of that quick reference like, how should I present this? That right there kind of starts to give me the clues.
It's like the personality visuals, you know, like the kind of like the ITNJ or whatever, or Enneagrams or whatever, right? It's almost like that about the monsters,
the temperament sorter for the monster for the bounty hunters. Yeah.
But I mean, but what it reminds me of, because it kind of harkens back to the comic book days whenever I collected it was really serious back in the 90s, and they had the comic book cards with all the heroes and villains would have like the power meters for X, Y, and Z, right? Oh man, that speaks to me in a very deep and abiding place of nostalgia where I'm like, I'm so much more comfortable with that visual reference of what all of that kind of means and how I can compare it to everything else instead of just like this. I got to read a paragraph of text to get that much out of just like a flash of where those numbers sit. I love that.
Yeah, that dial is plus the list of alternate aliases is really the only thing that every hunter has in common on their pages. Pretty much everything is uniquely suited to what best describes it. Like even the stats are kind of wiggly. There's only a very small bar that actually has stat line stuff on it, and it varies wildly depending on what hunter you're looking at. But yeah, that comes from a place of nostalgia for me too. I think where that came from, for me at least, was a Prima strategy guide for Pokemon Emerald.
Okay. Yeah. Right on. No.
Yeah,
I know
just
exactly
like
what
the
you're talking about.
Pokédex in there with all the base stats of every Pokemon in that like polygon dial thing.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, it's like it's right there. It says everything that is so like to me it's like such a really awesome visual refinement of design, in that it's like how much more space would that have taken up with text
Right.
than something that's really, really succinct. And it's like, again, that's the thing. I'm that kind of thing I could probably do. I'm just too dense between the text
Yes.
versus the visual that I can't make the connection between the two. Right? Like I can make that design, like in like Adobe Illustrator.
But you would not have the thought to make
No,
that design.
not at all.
Yeah,
Not at all. I wouldn't even remembered. I would recalled what I just recalled about like the comic book cards. Right? I wouldn't have made that connection there, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. I love this, and it
Right.
like
And that's what I mean, like the level of visual design and the way that Knobs thinks is tremendous. Like, because this is actually like a very minimalist way to present a tremendous amount of information about
Yes.
the genre, right? And then like the orange words up above are just like, these are key terms that any GM can pull out to know exactly how to tactically or strategically deploy this creature, right?
That's
like,
a really good point too. I didn't even think about
so-
that. I hadn't even gotten there yet. Honestly.
Right, like that's the thing. Like the more you look at this, the deeper
Yes.
you're like, oh, this. Like there's
Utterly
more
silent,
that
no pain,
comes out,
vibration
right?
sense. God, man, I love that. I love that.
And
if-
the
and-
whirling
ahead.
thing specifically, my favorite thing is like they're utterly silent, but if you scroll down to their skills or their abilities, they're good at mimicry or animal speech, which means the only noises you ever hear from them are like the players' voices or other people's voices
Right.
repeated back to them, animal sounds, other things like that. Like I love the idea of it being utterly silent until somebody like screams in pain and then it's screaming in the exact same voice. Like the ability to inflict like really intense vibes to your players really immediately from something like this is just so great.
This is also the second time in the last week with other zine creators or other creators where I've seen the visual representation of size differentiation between humans or between the average human and whatever it is that they're trying to compare it to, which to me is grossly underutilized. Like, how big really is a goblin versus a human? You never can really tell. You'll have like, it'll say how many feet and inches it is and maybe the description somewhere in the monster manual for D&D, but there's really no like, there's no scale. You don't really understand what like, how big is an aboleth? How big is a Tarrasque? Like the Tarrasque is actually probably an outlier where you do have like one little dude that's running away and about to get cooked or eaten by him. But this, the approach of this being like a regular part of the visual study or like the study of the creature or NPC, I think it's important whenever you're trying to, because now I know that this creature can be, this bounty hunter can be imposing or oddly tall. You know what I mean? Like it's like, and you can create a sense of more of a visual representation beyond just what's on a page, right? Like in your mind, as the game master, I can paint a better picture when I know what the scale actually is of this creature.
Right. Like I could say large, and that would probably convey the same raw information. Right.
How tall is this thing?
Yeah.
It says like 12 to 15 feet, something like that, right? It's like that really doesn't give me like how big is a thunder is like a storm giant. Really, really big, large, huge, whatever. But I mean, like to really understand what that is, like how far up am I craning my neck to see this thing? You know,
right? Yeah, that's what you're actually asking when you say how large is this creature. Like maybe you're talking about how many squares does this creature take up on a battle mat, and that's one question. But the more important question to ask is like, how just like totally boned am I right now? Right?
Exactly. Which side of the mountain do I have to be on to be at eye level with this thing? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and that one's nostalgic too. I just realized it's from like old dinosaur books.
Yes.
Like you'll see like the brontosaurus next to a little.
We can be friends. That's true. Like you're speaking my love language here. I love this.
Love it.
The old dinosaur books. Holy crap! Throwback.
Yeah.
It was I actually have a question that Knobs and I have not talked about. Like you talk about, so you created the orb space for this. Is it orb space or orb spheres? Because I can't remember which one is correct and which one I made up.
The orb space.
For orb space, right? Yeah. So I made it like a system of planets for Through the Voids to throw it in real quick, which was a blast. But where did that come from? A place? Is that going to be addressed in the game at all, or is it just kind of like this is just a thing I dropped in, figure out how you use it?
Yep. Nope. It's nothing. It's
intentionally nebulous. I love it.
I did exactly the right thing with it then.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. You absolutely did. Because it's what it really is I did not have a reason for all of these things to have been brought together into one compendium and to explicate in a detailed way as to anything along those lines would take me more pages than I was willing to budget. So I said they're from across the orb space, and how you want to interpret that is entirely up to your game. And I think that like more or less fits in with any kind of fantasy or role-playing
Well, it's
Yeah.
system and
setting.
setting neutral immediately when you use such a. It's not a generic term. Orb space is not a term that we use like on the regular, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it is. But you immediately know what it is, right? And you can fit that in like a cog in whatever machine that it needs to go into for it to make sense in whatever your setting or your system is actually going to end up being.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and like so yeah, I made it a planetary system that was in decline, and that very few people live in anymore for our setting. And but it was great because I got to throw out to the players then like, hey, they come from the orb of arid vast. So what does their ship look like, right? And just have
Right.
players kind of paint the scene on that.
God, I love that.
It ended up totally different. Like it's like it's a desolate, like it's kind of a desert place, but they were like, I think that sounds amazingly cold, like mountainous and frozen. And I was like, great, because that's a type of desert also too. It's just not what we were
Yeah.
thinking of. So like the
Perfect.
swords are now ice swords. There's cryo tanks. Even the blue of the eyes like popping out gives a kind of solid like cryo feel to that. And so it was just really fun to see how players riffed on that, but also like just the ability to say, all right, cool. Like maybe it's a different set of planes of existence, or maybe it's a weird set of planets, or maybe it's, the moons that surround wherever you're at, or maybe it's something completely different based on what your setting is. But it was a lot of fun to just kind of see that right before we go live and be like, oh yeah, I got to figure that part out. We'll figure it out when we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? And another
Well,
question that was asked a little while ago is, could these be pulled into modern day games or more superhero future sci-fi? I think the answer to that, much like with a lot of, it really depends on the consumer and the thing that I love about creations like this is not necessarily, you have to not use it like soup to nuts exactly the way that it's presented. It is however you imagine it to be utilized. These could like I could do this in a modern setting on Earth where these are bounty hunters that are trying to find some MacGuffin or creature or something like that, and they're quote unquote invading, or like you could use this for anything, right? You could that's the beauty of things like this, where it's plug and play wherever it makes the most sense to you. I really appreciate that about this kind of design. Is it's like I said, it's the teeth of the cogs the widgets that you're creating are almost like universal to where you can plug them in wherever you need to for it to work.
Yeah. And even to that, like, and one of the other ones that appeared on stream, which is however you pronounce the gargoyles in French is what the name of them are, which I won't try to do. But I took some of the aliases and I just blended them together to make them Argus, Fargus, and Bargus, Fate, right? Because
Nice.
they had like kind of this feel of the Fates, but they also have these three names that were listed. I just fused those together and made them the Fate brothers, and they're linked together by a chain. The way that they're written, they have a single chain that kind of connects all of them, and they share one brain between the three of them. If and the way I did it, that chain also had a cybernetic cable coiled around it and went into each of their spaces. They were literally jacked in together, which led to some tremendous things by one of the players of hijacking their brains and confusing them for a few minutes while everybody just ran past them, which was great. But if I was going to drop that into a modern setting, I would probably have a set of like three Scottish brothers, who show up and they are rough and tumble and they each have a coil of chain that's kind of like their family signature, but they would be very dumb and constantly arguing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the transition I would make in those players, in moving them just into a modern setting.
Right,
I would just
and to
strip out the
reskin,
magic. Yeah,
reskin and read rather than retool. It's just a reskin, right?
right. I'm just changing the
I
flavor
like
to
that.
whatever makes sense within that setting. But yeah, you could Predator drop one of these in also too.
the other thing that I think is like, in my mind at least, 13 Hunters is a product that relishes in the bizarre. And so, because it relishes in that bizarre aspect, it can fit in a lot of things because yes, this isn't portraying any of these creatures as normal. They aren't part of your normal setting. They are outside those bounds. And so you might be running, I'm gonna go extreme here, and I'm gonna get shot by my players, but I might be running a Dune game. Like the point is that if I brought one of these hunters in, that they would feel a little bit out of place and a little bit crazy, and that should it's like good. That's as written. That's how it should feel when one of these strides onto your story, um, and that makes them more versatile to me. Is when I'm looking for that thing that is going to shake things up or really make my players take note or take pause. Um, any of these will do that.
Yeah, that's a big part of the design intent that I'm holding closely when I'm, looking at designing each of these is um, if we're if we're operating from the basic assumption that all of these creatures are going to be alien to any game that you put them in. Not necessarily aliens, but maybe they are aliens to your game. Point is that there's some kind of like strange force that is not normal.
Well, that's perfect though. I mean, that's
And
perfect for what you want.
that I think is part and parcel with being
And it's
system
perfect for what you
agnostic,
want here
how
though,
to work around.
because you've already got something that's the norm of another campaign. If you really want to go in a direction that the players weren't expecting, like if you if this is a background shadowy character and then they're revealed, it's totally bizarre and it belies expectations from your players.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, let's do this. So like we said, it's on Gamefound as of this recording, which is on the 20th of February. You have 11 days left to support it over there. There are a few different pledge levels, which I'll just run through really quickly because there's only 3 of them. You can do $6, which is your digital tier. You can do $12, which is kind of your digital and physical zine, and then you can get the all-in tier, which comes with both physical, digital, a poster, a sticker pack. Is there anything that I'm missing, Tony or Nobsk?
No, that's it. Other than
Okay.
people should go get it.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
that top level, like it's the level to back at. Even if you're like, I just want the middle level, you should get the sticker pack also too, because it's
Poster's
gonna
going to
be
be
great.
cool too. But I will say, if you can opt for the physical, it'll be worth it because it's like a very strange book. It kind of opens like this, rather than a
Ooh.
normal book,
I
and
keep
kind of
on
has that
taking,
like,
like, it's not
yeah,
hardback, but I
it's
keep
so
on
great.
taking one of my like this so I can demonstrate. Like it'll open up, and you'll get like
Yeah,
like picture on top,
yeah,
text.
totally,
So
Oh.
it'll
like
have a real
entirely
dossier quality to
That's
it.
cool.
vertical
S-
spread. Yeah,
Vertical spread. So for our podcast listeners, Tony is
yeah,
illustrating a book that the spine is supposed to be oriented towards the top,
Right.
and you open it like that, which is fantastic. Yeah, well, Tony, you already said it, but I'll reiterate. Go ahead and back this. I already have,
Same.
and I would highly encourage that. I think I've backed Nobs. I've picked up in preparation for this stream. I picked up Kishu, and the design on that one's also
cool.
awesome. But the stuff that you and Sam have done in the past with Azerians is great. I have that one. Just several things tied to the two of you
Thank
are
you.
sitting on my shelves or in my computer. And somebody said on your Gamefound, I'm going to botch who it was, but towards the end, yeah, Joan DeSimone, is
Joe
that?
Dismone, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He talked about how um, you two are some of the people that he trusts the most with regards to additive procedures and tools. I'm like, yeah, that relates very directly to my own experience with these creators. So, um, thumbs up to you for really taking the time to make products that aren't just book number 47 on somebody's shelf,
Mm-hmm.
but actually have a carved out intentional space and utility to get brought out and thrown onto the table.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. John, are we missing anything before we start to round this out?
Nope. I think we covered it all.
All right. How about from you, Nobsk or Tony? Anything that we should be bringing up before we point people towards your socials?
No, only I'll say this. It's part of Zemo, which
Hmm.
we're super excited about. Nobsk and Sam have also been really instrumental in helping organize the Zemo community Discord as well too. So there's a lot of work that's gone in there. It's the only project in Zemo on Gamefound, which means it doesn't benefit like a lot of other platforms from having an ecosystem. Itch has an ecosystem that reinforces finding other and supporting other creators. Kickstarter does also. Because there aren't as many TTRPGs on Gamefound, it doesn't have as much of that, and there's not as many live projects right now to draw eyes to it. So even if you've already backed, we'd highly encourage you go share it with other folks if you're able to, and if you haven't yet, please come join us over there. I love Gamefound as a platform. We'll be hosting all of our projects there for the foreseeable future that aren't just straight to itch releases, and would love to see other TTRPG creators. I mean, we've got some cool things in the works with them that we can't talk about yet, other than saying we've got some cool things in the works with the folks over at Gamefounds to help support TTRPGs a little bit more fully as we go forward also too.
That's awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Awesome. Well, we're going to drop, Nobsky, you have a whole link tree that you like to send people to, I think. So we're going to drop all those links into the chat. Tony, what's the best spot? Is it plus1exp.com? Is that the space to send people?
At plus1exp on Twitter or social media is the best place to reach out. Yeah, if you want to buy stuff from us, you can get a plus1.games. Anything that has a physical copy will link over to our website also, so they can pick it up there. But Itch is that's going to point to our Itch page, and that's the best place.
Perfect. And then we talked about it enough on stream tonight. I'll give Troy a note here at the end that I think we should drop the live play that you guys did into our show notes so people can go check that out as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that sounds awesome, and I think it's always great. I find a special fascination to watch somebody who is taking a system neutral thing and turning it into applying it to a system or converting it from one system to another. It's always fascinating to me to watch the game master do that and see how that adaptation process works. So I think that's going to be extra fascinating. All right, well, Tony Knobs, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank y'all.
It's been great.
All right. John, thank you as well, and everybody in chat for hanging out with us again.
And thank you.
All right. Folks, go back 13 Hunters, and until next week, we'll see you next time.
Everybody enjoy your games and be safe out there. We're still streaming. I wanted to take just a second, and some of the new folks that popped into chat for the first time. Blake Ryan, let's see, Dice Drinks and Drama, very chatty. So thanks for participating and engaging. I see we've still got Craig and Ferristine, Girk. We got our regulars out there. Got Natzelli and Abbott and Costello's out there also. So just want to make sure before we dropped off. Thanks for joining. Thanks for staying live with us, and we hope you had fun.
And this will be the last stream for the evening, just to put an extra point in that. So,
Yep, good deal.
all righty. Thank you, guys.
So we're going to call it. Thanks, everybody. Take care.